TF2 is a titan of the FPS industry. Few games have survived as long as TF2, and it continues to have a player base of millions, almost 8 years after its release in 2007. Just let that sink in for a moment. BioShock 1 was released in 2007. I was still a COD kid playing on my Xbox back in 2007. TF2 survived going free to play. It survived hackers, scammers. Hell, we even survived End of the Line. Then Overwatch came along and suddenly everyone's acting like it's the end days. You got women screaming in the streets like TF2's gonna die, Overwatch is TF3. And it's like everyone's got this opinion that there can only be one class-based shooter in the world.
There can be only one.
And I gotta say, before I actually got a chance to play the game, I probably would have agreed with you. I mean, Overwatch looks similar to TF2 in a lot of ways, and it looked like it was basically the same game with just a few changes made to it, and that everyone was gonna have to choose between one of the two. Kinda like how people choose between Coke or Pepsi and then spend their entire weekend arguing with their friends over which one's better. But after actually getting a chance to play the game, I can see we're not in a Highlander movie. There doesn't just have to be one. Overwatch is not what Pepsi is to Coke. It's not just another rip-off where I'm gonna have to choose between one or the other. It's more like Kit Kats and chocolate pudding. That's a really bad analogy, but I mean, sure, I like Kit Kats, but I also like pudding, and I don't have to choose between the two because both of them are fucking delicious. I mean, sure, Overwatch is a shooter, and it's got different classes in it, just like TF2, but it does a lot of things differently. TF2's got some kind of special chemistry to it, a special something, that kind of crazy fun element, be it if you're cabering snipers on 2 Fort, market gardening on High Tower, or Rancho Relaxing in some pretty insane spots. It's just something unique, it's something special, and it's what makes TF2 so awesome for me, and you can't just replace that with another game simply because, oh, it also has guns and classes in it. I mean, that's insane, and the more I played Overwatch, the more I realized just how crazy I was to think that. That said, I did get a pretty unique chance to play Overwatch last week, and I had a ton of fun with the game. So I thought I'd also tell you a bit about some of my favorite bits about it, and also show you some never-before-seen footage of 2 new heroes. One of the ways Overwatch makes itself so unique compared with other shooters on the market right now is with its MOBA-like hero abilities. So I thought I'd start with talking a little bit about those. I was honestly pretty excited to try out a lot of the heroes and some of their insane looking ultimates. But even with my pretty high expectations, I was still pretty blown away by how well done those abilities were. I mean, yeah, they look awesome and they felt really cool, but by far the thing I liked most about them was seeing how well they kind of worked and synergized together. Let's take a look at one of the new heroes. McCree is a bit of an example. McCree is this crazy cyborg cowboy guy, and I think the best way to describe him is basically as a sniper with no scope. His gun has got perfect accuracy, it can headshot and deals the same damage as a sniper. At the Overwatch event last week, he was one of my favorite heroes to play. His secondary ability, Combat Roll, not only lets you kind of quickly dodge around a fight, but using it will also immediately reload his pistol, letting you quickly fire all 6 rounds into an enemy, roll towards them, and then finish them off with another magazine. McCree's next ability, Flashbang, would momentarily immobilize enemies, which on a sniping class felt really cool. I'd have some kind of cocky tracers running at me, darting left and right, and they were almost impossible to shoot, but by throwing out a quick flashbang and lining up a headshot, you'd send them straight back to the respawn room. Ultimately, I think what made McCree and a lot of the Overwatch heroes feel so great is that it didn't feel like 4 separate abilities on the same hero, which all worked independently, but more like 4 important parts of the same hero, all of which would work together for one awesome effect. Outside the actual heroes themselves, there was also a ton of potential to set up these great kind of ability combos between heroes. The other new hero, Zarya, had an awesome ultimate called Graviton Surge, which would kind of suck all the enemies in a massive area into it. This was really cool to see in games, not only because of how you could put it off the side of a cliff and watch the enemy team get sucked over the side, but also because of how you could throw in abilities like Tracer's Time Bomb to make it even more deadly. It was that kind of synergy that existed between heroes that created an awesome sense of teamwork that I really liked. One of the big concerns I think I and a lot of the TF2 community had about Overwatch was the whole idea of skill cap. I mean, if you look around TF2, you see a ton of people with thousands of hours invested in the game, and it's one of the few games out there where if you've got under 1,000 hours, then you're still a pretty casual player. One of the big reasons I've been able to put so much time into TF2 and still have fun with it is because of the almost infinitely high skill cap. TF2 is a game with so many things to master, with stuff like rocket jumps and air shots. They always give you something to improve on. Back when I first saw Overwatch, I got really worried because the entire movement system looked pretty simple and very scripted, and after playing the game, I still have a somewhat similar opinion. The movement of most heroes is largely very rigid, but where I was wrong was to think that because of that, the game would have a low skill cap. I think a good way to explain it is saying that because games like CSGO and Dota don't have rocket jumping, they also have low skill caps, which is clearly pretty ridiculous. Those games take a huge amount of skill to master. They just have their own ways of establishing skill. And really, it was the same with Overwatch. While there are lots of different ways that high skill caps can exist in Overwatch, I think the way that you kind of use and learn to combine all your various abilities together, not only within your own hero, but within the team as a whole, is the most obvious way that people can really establish their skill. And after the demo, I didn't really have any concerns that the game would be overly simple. I also kind of understand that 4 hours of playtime isn't necessarily enough to know something like that for sure, but when our TF2 team, which included Germa, Star, me, and Banny, all pretty seasoned FPS players, got completely crushed by the Overwatch developer team, I really saw just how much game knowledge and experience really mattered when playing Overwatch. That said, the game isn't perfect yet. Teleports were a really rare thing to come by, and the lack of movement mechanics like rocket jumping and sticky jumping meant I spent a lot of downtime walking from spawn to the battlefield. The other thing that I think we all agreed on after the event was a little bit problematic is the current game HUD. One of the things that makes the TF2 HUD so awesome is that information is super easy to come by. If I'm in the middle of a fight, I can keep track of my health in my peripheral vision without taking my eyes off the target, just by looking at the size of my cross and its color. In Overwatch, I found the health bar to be way too small and pretty hard to read in the middle of a fight. I found myself dying a lot when I'd kind of take my eyes off the enemy to quickly search for my health bar, and by the time I'd found it, I would have gotten shot and I'd be dead, and then I'd realize I was on 0 HP. Another thing that I'd really love to see is the inclusion of damage numbers and hit sounds, because right now, I often wouldn't really know if I'd headshot someone or just hit them in the body. And beyond just actually knowing how much damage you've dealt, I think one of the most satisfying things in TF2 is just hearing that massive dong and seeing that 102 pop up when you meat shot someone as a scout. And I just think it would overall add a lot to the kind of satisfaction of shooting someone in the game. So, Muselk, I hear you all asking, what the hell does this all mean? Well, Overwatch is in a really good place right now, and I had a lot of fun with it, and I think a lot of you guys who like TF2 will probably like the game as well. That said, Overwatch, for me at least, is not a replacement for TF2, and they do feel like two very different games. So I'm going to end it here, but long story short, I'm not going to be quitting TF2 for Overwatch. A day may come when I finally get sick of shoveling people on Hightower, but today is not that day. That said, Overwatch is insanely fun to play, and I'm looking forward to sharing some videos with you on both games once it finally gets released. So as always, thank you so much for watching, I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.